Hey, John Gilroy here. Today we answer two questions. Does AI stand for artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence? Number two, can this mysterious AI be applied to federal contracting? Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, a podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. We have double trouble in the virtual studio today. Our guests are Vishwas Lele, co-founder and CEO of pWin.ai, and Larry Katzman, president and CEO of AIS. Gentlemen, are you ready to answer the tough questions today?
Definitely, John. I cannot expect anything else when I'm with you.
Okay, good. Larry didn't really jump in and answer any tough questions. So maybe
I was keying in the question to ChatGPT to get the answer. So
that's what you have to do. I did an interview last week. I said, are you real or is this artificial intelligence answering the questions? So I guess we'll find out from Vishwas. I think my answer knows you, Vishwas. We've had a lot of fun over the years doing interviews. We kind of know about pWin. We kind of saw you when you were in your little baby shoes and you're kind of a toddler just trying to fall down. And all of a sudden, you may be a 7 or 8 year old. You're kind of running, climbing trees, and pWin's not a little baby toddler anymore. And so what we've seen over the years is the big word evolution. So let's talk about these language models that I mentioned at the open here. So it looks like advances in large language models in the last year has really changed. So just give us an up-to-date update on all these changes. I mean, if you can.
Definitely, John. And you've very colorfully described our evolution. And I would say that colorful description applies to the evolution of language models as well. Because if you think about it, at the end of 2024, we were thinking about bigger models, more data, things like that, right? But also it was clear that just by throwing more data and more compute was really not scaling. And the hope there was that now we can move towards reasoning models, which can actually think about the task that you've given them, think about how you would go about answering that question or whatever you've asked them to do, come up with a plan, alter the plan midway if you think that the results are not going to be great. That's what we generally talk about as reasoning. So the big hope at the end of 2024, and now we are several months into 2025, the reasoning models, and there's certainly been a big improvement over what was available just by models that were just predicting text. Now the models are using some time, thinking time as we call them, to think about the problem and then come back and sort of answer the question more holistically. And what we have done, John, if all the listeners who remember this conversation that we had last time, from the very beginning, we have tried to incorporate some concept of a thinking time. And you and I talked about this. Why does it take you several minutes and hours to generate a response? And my answer to that question when we talked last time was, we are doing additional thinking. And glad to see that thinking approach is being translated into the models itself. So that's one big change. John, we'll talk about more changes, but we have adjusted to that approach, taking advantage of the reasoning models so that we can accelerate some of the planning that needs to happen.
Reasoning models. Boy, I probably need a little reasoning intelligence myself here. Let me set up the dynamics of this interview. So we have Vishwas, who runs this company called pWin.ai, and Larry is a very successful federal contractor. He's been doing this for many years. I've known Larry since 2017. And bit of a change with the whole world of efficiency in the last few months here, huh, Larry? So when you create proposals or respond to proposals, you have to change because it's a whole new landscape, isn't it, Larry?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this is a powerful technology that our people are absolutely going to use, whether we sanction it or not. So we're looking for a sanction tool that allows us to safely deploy this great new technology to this very difficult, arduous workload. And the real goal here from an efficiency standpoint, I recognize that you're really talking about the federal government being more efficient, but for our own company, we want to be more efficient in getting the basics laid down. We want to spend more time on the creative solutioning, the thought process that goes into making our proposal different, and using the tool to free up more time, because you are time boxed on these proposals, to free up more of that valuable time to work on the creative innovative solutions that we're proposing to the government in most cases.
So Vishwas, if we're playing volleyball, this is a setup for you. I'm tossing an easy kill shot. So here's the kill shot. So Vishwas, how can you help out Larry?
Yeah, so of course, our mission of trying to help people put their best foot forward, right? So they have a lot of information, their proposal library, their past performance, their core competency documents, they may have CPARs, they may have agency debriefs. All of this information today is available, maybe stored in a system like SharePoint or another document management system. So the first and foremost is, can you take this information and sort of Gen AI enable that, sort of convert this information into knowledge? I think that's the first step. And we find that customers who just go through this process of organizing their content, maybe zooming in on solutions that they want to focus on going forward, maybe removing things that are old and stale, just getting hold of their proposal library and converting that into knowledge, that's number one. I think that's one. And companies who have done that already with us for several months find themselves in a position where now I have my knowledge, and now a new solicitation arrives. And can I now, by virtue of having this knowledge already in place, a new solicitation arrives, you can assess that solicitation. What are the tasks being asked? What are the evaluation criteria? Things like that. You can very quickly understand that solicitation and try to generate a readiness score. Is your organization ready to even bid? Because I know that people want to bid more. That's clearly the case. But we also recommend to people that you should be bidding opportunities where you have a greater chance of success. So by converting your proposal library into knowledge and then being able to match it up against the requirements of a solicitation quickly so that you arrive at a go, no-go decision quickly. And once you decide to go forward, how can you accelerate the generation of first draft so that your team has enough time at the end to apply innovation, apply differentiation, and improve your probability of winning? So all of these things together, it is ultimately about efficiency, as Larry talked about. If you look at what's happening in the federal space with the new administration, efficiency is the key word. And AI is another keyword. And sort of you combine these two together, we're helping organizations put their best foot forward, John.
I'm taking notes, and you just said probability of learning. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're at the gym or jogging or something, and you want to learn more about pWin.ai, what I suggest you do is you go to the website, pWin.ai, and I think there's an RFI thing, something about creating and managing RFIs. And so what you can do is you can download this and read this in the weekend, or if it's snow on the ground, you listen to this podcast, you can go there and download this. And so it's a nice little tool, huh, Vishwas? And I'll put a link in the show notes, but we can listen to Vishwas and Larry and get an idea, but all of a sudden it makes it tangible almost, doesn't it, Vishwas?
We definitely, John, we added the RFI tool recently, and we welcome your listeners to come and give it a try. And just to sort of give you a background of why we decided to introduce it, it was all very data-driven decision. As I mentioned earlier, our tool is designed to help you organize your knowledge and then generate the first high-quality draft for your complex RFPs, right? That's been our mission. What we found out, John, by looking at the data, a lot of people were using our system in a chat manner or in a Q&A manner to answer a lot of RFI questions. That was our data was telling us that, right? So we said, okay, if a lot of people are using it for that use case, we know that people are turning to RFIs as a tool to explore opportunities in different agencies. Combine that with the data that we were getting, we thought that can we create a curated experience just for RFI, where you can upload your RFI documents, or you can start answering them. And unlike an RFP, as you well know, John, RFIs are a lot about past performance. Like, have you done this work? Because the government this time is trying to just figure out what are the companies that may be interested, what are the capabilities that exist. So RFIs are becoming an important tool for that. And we decided to take the data that we have, streamlined some of the chat capability we have into a curated RFI experience where you can very quickly respond to these RFIs.
Good. Larry Katzman, I'm going to turn the tables here and talk about a trip. So one year, my wife loaded up the kids and me and drove to Oklahoma, and we had to drive through Missouri. Now, the license plates in that state say Missouri, the show me state. And I always like show me. I like getting someone like you because you use this product. So, okay, Larry, show me. So the question is, Larry, how are you using the tool and how has it reshaped your capture process?
Yeah, John, I love the show me state analogy is perfect because we often say show, don't tell, as opposed to show and tell. We often want to show our customers proof points of what technology can do for the problem we're trying to solve. So great use of that phrase. It's something we embrace heavily. We use the tool. Actually, it's amazing, Vishwas. That's exactly what we learned in the first few months of using it. The chat feature to talk to our own data was powerful because it democratized the knowledge of the organization. A lot of us have been here a long time, and we know a lot about things that AIS has done. But as the company has grown, and John, I mentioned that most of the time we're responding to a government proposal, we do commercial work too. So as we have this massive amount of experience, each person knows what they know, and they don't know what everybody else knows. So pWin has enabled us to democratize that knowledge across the various pockets in the company that don't always talk about all the experience we may have. So an RFI comes in, by interacting with the chat feature of pWin, we're able to answer questions and get clues as to what to ask next based on the things in the company that our own people may not know about that may be related to the RFI that came in. RFIs are really important to us. We want to position AIS as a provider of differentiated services where we have different ideas, innovative ideas, ways to make government more efficient, ways to help our customers save money and achieve results. So the better we can lean into the organizational knowledge, the better. We'll create better solutions. We'll spread that information. And it's really augmented. I like that phrase used earlier, augmented intelligence, because it's not replacing the people. It's inspiring more conversations, whether it's with the AI tools or with each other, to make sure we're putting our best ideas forward for that particular use case.
So Vishwas, earlier in the interview, I made some silly comment about toddler to be a 7-year-old. So let's talk about that progress from toddler to 7-year-old. So what lessons have you learned since the pWin beta program began? And what about this? Has the transition been from artificial intelligence to augmented? Are you going to answer the initial question?
Yeah. No, I'll build on what Larry just said about augmented intelligence. That's actually a very nice way to put it, John. What we have learned is people come expecting almost like a magic button without sort of realizing that AI at this current state is more of an assistive technology rather than an autonomous technology. So if you look at our own journey, and I'll give you 3 or 4 different things to think about, the things that we have learned, and hopefully your listeners can take these learnings and apply that into their own AI projects, proposals or not, that they may be building on their own. So first and foremost, these models, you can never be sure that they have exhaustively reviewed every requirement. So I talked about when a solicitation comes in, you have to look at section C, L, and M and whatnot, and you have to decipher from that, how are you going to respond in a manner that is most compliant, right? We use language models to do that, but there is, we all know this, and maybe have a separate show about LLMs and their behaviors, but it will suffice to say that these models have variability in them, right? Just by the nature of the systems that they are. So you cannot be 100% sure that every instruction, every evaluation criteria has been precisely mapped to the response outline. You can never be sure, at least not in its current state. So what we have figured out is when you're building GenAI applications, an important aspect of GenAI applications is human in the loop, right? And the human in the loop can come in 2 forms. It could be a kick-out human in the loop where, hey, I've run into this section where I just don't know what to do, and let's just kick this out to a human being who can sort of understand. Or even equally important and sometimes harder is, how do you weave in human in the loop that is contextual to the work that people are doing, right? So proposal writers are used to looking at these sections in a certain way. How can AI go in, look at these mappings, but present its work in a manner that is context-driven so that the users can come in and fix it? So we have spent a lot of time in the last year, John, trying to, in our workflow, figuring out what AI can do and then enabling the output of AI so that a human expert can come in and validate and correct it and things like that. And when I explain this to people, sometimes say, oh, I thought AI would just do this for me automatically, right? And the answer is that AI models are not at that point where you can just completely rely on them, and hence the word augmented. And I'll just give you two other very quick examples. I know I'm probably taking an extra few seconds to answer this question, but also very important to be domain specific. And John, when we talked about this last time, we said, we didn't just approach this problem, let's just put 4 smart AI ML engineers and try to solve somebody else's problem. Domain knowledge is super key to building productive Gen AI applications. So our exclusive partnership, our co-creation of this tool with Shipley Associates, a 50-year-old company that has taught really these companies how to write effective proposals. They have the de facto process for proposal writing. Having them co-create with us has been very important. So the domain knowledge is key. The human in the loop is key. And I talked about the variability in these models. So we do things like, from the very beginning, we've had responsible AI tenets from the very beginning. And I'm proud to say that the very first version of the product, we had things like checks. So your model, despite telling the model to limit their purview only to your proposal library, models can still go outside that purview and state things that may not be accurate. And we are talking about, John, we are talking about a high stakes problem. You don't want to be getting disqualified for a technicality, right? So the models can still go out of the purview. And what we do, and this is all part of the engineering that is needed to build real world generative AI applications. So what we do is, even though we've constrained the models to your proposal library and only your proposal library, it can still produce some inaccurate information. So what we do is we take the text that these models are delivering and then extract some interesting assertions from it. Hey, you have asserted that I have done 50 node migration in this year. That's an assertion. Can we take that assertion out and then can we match it against the ground truth of your proposal library so that we can further build guardrails for you as a proposal writer that you may want to check this. And the final thing I'll say, there has been some fatigue, John, with the AI-generated content, right? People can say, there was a very interesting article in New York Times that AI-generated content is like a fat-free cookie, right? Cookie, okay, but certainly tastes like a fat-free cookie. Because these generative AI models, by their very nature, they try to pack so much information into 3 or 4 lines. When you're reading them a paragraph at a time, that may be okay. But when you're reading such a high density text for 5 or 10 or 20 pages that we generate, that can be very onerous for the evaluators. So we have done a lot of work to make the AI writing more human, more applicable to people. So these are some of the important lessons that we have learned, John. Sorry for the long answer, but hopefully there's some hidden nuggets here for your listeners, because I encourage them to use Gen AI in their everyday work. And here are some lessons that I think they'll find useful.
I think in my world, what we found is that humans pretty good, AI is pretty good, but you combine the two, then you have 1 and 1 is 4. But 1 is still 1, and there's weaknesses in both. And I think that's the whole idea behind, I got to cut the grass. I can use a push mower or a lawnmower is going to be fast. So you combine a little bit of automation with the humans and you get the best results. Speaking of humans, I got a question for Larry. I've got a son who does kettlebells, and he's got these monster legs, and he talks about big gains. So I ask him about big gains. So what do you find most valuable with pWin.ai when it comes to your biggest gains. So what's the most about what gives you the most gains, and nothing to do with kettlebells?
I appreciate that it's not weightlifting. I will say, I talked about democratizing the knowledge of the organization. That's really helpful. I've also used the tool in meetings where I needed a reference point and I was able to quickly pull it up. And those are really valuable use cases. But above all, it's the ability to have an extra member of the team that allows us to get from a no bid to a bid. We've used pWin to get us to that point where we feel confident going forward with the bid because we're going to get that first draft within a day. And oftentimes in this world, when you're doing things right, you have too many opportunities to bid and you have to pick and choose. And when you end up in that circumstance, it's been, to me, the most valuable part of this tool has been able to get from no bid to bid so we can take one extra shot on goal and increase our chances of winning. And we don't want to do this in volume where the quality is degraded. So it's this extra member of the team that can be working while we're not working, producing content that is then ready for that human element to come in and make better. And we get to that first draft quicker, and we do so with less disruption to the experts that are busy all day long serving clients whose help we need. We really want to minimize the disruption to them to help us through this process. So it's not about replacing people. It's certainly not. It's about augmenting people. It's about scaling up and being able to get from a no bid to a bid on opportunities that you are a good fit for. So it's not about getting to bid things you're not a good fit for. It's just about scale and having that extra member of the team.
So Vishwas, I'm going to make a statement that you're not going to believe because no one believes. I've written 500 technology columns for the Washington Post. And I'll tell you one thing, staring at a blank sheet of paper is tough. My editor would get 750 words, 1,000 words, and it's so much easier to edit than come up with that blank sheet. And so if Larry gets to work at 9 o'clock, and walks in, got a blank sheet of paper isn't it nicer to have at least a rough outline or a start? And then you can apply that human and go, well, this doesn't fit. And so I think that's the combination of Vishwas. It's like, well, you're not going to have a blank sheet of paper. You can have something to start from, whether you like it or not, and you can customize that. And so it just is, it's a, what do you call it, writer's block, or maybe proposal writer's block. So you give people the leg up, huh, Vishwas?
Yeah, and absolutely. As an engineer, I can tell you I'm not a very good writer. So I always, I shouldn't generalize the statement. There are many good engineers who are good writers as well, but I'm just talking about myself. What I think, John, to sort of broaden your point, right? It is not just about solving the writer's block. If AI generated 2 pages of text, that text has to be relevant, because now you're running into a problem of having to read 2 pages worth of homogenized text that you don't like, and you have to start all over again. So I want to extend what you just said. In our approach, we have a very important concept. We have filed a provisional patent for this concept where the name of the patent is object-based writing. And I know it sounds technical, but let me explain this. We want you to, before we even start writing, we want you to give us a high-level intuition or some hints about how you want to solve a problem. And let's just take a very concrete example to clarify it for your users. Let's say I'm bidding on some sort of a collaboration software or records management software. I'm the SME for that. And as you said, if somebody told me to write 2-3 pages, it'll take me a while to get there. But I'm able to very quickly go in and say, look, I'm going to write this records management piece. I think I'm going to use this SharePoint capability for records management, and I want these features. I can quickly provide some hints. And now, in our world, we take that information, and that's really the patent that I was talking about. Give us the strategy, we will give you the words, right? So you've given us a high-level strategy about how records management needs to work. What we will do is, okay, got it. Let's just go to your proposal library and see if you've done similar kinds of records management work. Let's just extend that. Take your hint, get some proof points, as Larry talked about, and now generate a 2 or 3 page draft which sort of combine these together. And then furthermore, take into account some of the best practices of writing, what Shipley tells you about. Start with acknowledging the problem that the customer is trying to solve. follow it up with instances where you've done this work and wrap up with a summary, some sort of a format like that Shipley has said, right, for the evaluators. So now you've given us a hint, we've gone to your proposal library, we've now generated all of the prompts to get to your one-voiced version, which now you can start editing. So absolutely, you're not just starting from a blank sheet, but you're actually starting from something that is relevant to you and you're likely to use.
Well, this has been a real fun interview, Larry and Vishwas. I have taken notes here. So here's the topics we've covered. Okay, Missouri license plates, fat-free cookies, and kettlebells. How's that for a technical interview, huh? Parting thoughts. Vishwas, look deep into the crystal ball. Is AI going to be a menace, or are we going to tame it?
Oh, I am very hopeful that we will continue to learn about better patterns to interact with AI, figure out what are the synergies, figure out ways that we are able to continue to push the envelope on productivity by taking advantage of what AI is good at, but in a responsible manner. I think the only way to use this technology is to think about a responsible AI approach. And I'm very hopeful that this technology can help us if used in that manner.
Yeah, I agree with that. Good. Well, running out of time here, unfortunately. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guests, Vishwas Lele, co-founder and CEO of pWin.ai, and Larry Katzman, president and CEO of AIS. And I'll have links in the show notes for everything we mentioned today. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate being here.